right, well, here we are. Welcome to another Green Thumb lecture series. My name is John Schaefer, and I'm with the Harris County Public Library. Joining me today is a Harris County Master Gardener, someone who representative from their organization, for a very special presentation and discussion. We're here online, usually every third Tuesday of the month at 11 a.m. We pause for the holidays, but we are back now, 2024. Looking forward to it. Today's topic is an introduction into aquaponics. Going to be a good one. But before I introduce our presenter, I just want to go over a couple of things. First, we love questions, and we're going to be answering questions throughout the entire presentation. So if you have them, please go ahead and just type those into the your Facebook or your YouTube chat or wherever you're watching this. Type those questions in, and we'll get those to Benny as we go. And second, we want to tell everybody, remind everybody that we are here next, this coming February 20th. We'll be back with Success with Spring Vegetables. That's right. Success with Spring Vegetables. Hard to believe on a day like this. It is 25 degrees currently right now in Houston, so it's very cold, but spring is around the corner. Okay, so now it is my pleasure to introduce to you our special presenter. This is Benny Matusik. He was born in Houston, grew up in Deer Park, and graduated from Deer Park High School and then the University of Houston. He has been a Harris County Master Gardener since 2020 and really wants to know how much food one suburban home can produce without alerting the local homeowners association. His specific interests are aquaponics, permaculture, and what this evening's dinner will include from the backyard garden. And I would like to know that too. Maybe some fish on ice maybe today is.
We'll talk all about it.
Benny, good to have you here. Well, how are you today? Are you keeping warm?
I am. You know what? For a change, I'm actually wearing shoes and socks both. Normally I run around in sandals. I'm an outside kind of guy, but bundled up, I'm doing just fine. I'm staying warm.
All righty. We'll tell you what, we've got a whole lot of information to get to, so I know you want to get right into it. Let me go ahead and put your presentation right on the screen there, and I will let you take it away and let me know. I know we have a very special video coming up in a few minutes. Just let me know when you're ready to go for that.
That sounds good. Thank you very much, John. All right. So yes, today's topic is aquaponics. We're going to do an introduction to aquaponics, specifically with an eye towards home systems. If you've ever seen online videos about YouTube, some of these systems are in giant greenhouses. They cost thousands and thousands of dollars. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what you can do at home to be useful and cost effective. So that's our topic for today. And you know what? I got to say, I'm really excited about aquaponics because one of the things I really like about gardening is the intellectual aspect of it. Just understanding the soil, understanding the climate, understanding the seasons, and what the seeds are up to and what have you. And you know what? Aquaponics throws in an extra dimension because now you're not just growing plants in some kind of media. Now you've got fish and you've got, water chemistry comes into play as well. So this is one of the neatest topics. If you enjoy messing with things, trying new things out, just tinkering to see how things work, this is the topic that you want. As John said, this presentation is done for you guys. So if you have any questions, please chat them, and John will interrupt me as we go. I don't think that you can unmute yourself. So again, if you would just put your questions in the chat, and we'll go from there. And remember that this is not the only topic that the Green Thumb people have out there. They have lined up an entire year's worth of fantastic topics. So, make sure that you get a copy of this PDF because slide number 3 has got this schedule in it, and you can look and see what else it is going to help you, not just interesting, but what things are going to help you. And you can make sure that you attend those as well. In addition, the Master Gardeners in Harris County have a demonstration garden. The name of the garden is Genoa Friendship Garden. And if you think about Beltway 8 being kind of like a clock, the garden is at the 5 o'clock position, just inside the Beltway a little bit. If you put Genoa Friendship Garden into your iPhone Maps app, it will get you there. Fantastic to go. Number one, meet people, ask your questions, just listen to them spew their wisdom and knowledge and what have you. It's also nice to go there and kind of see, what they're doing. When are they planting stuff compared to what you're doing? When are they harvesting comparing to what you're doing? How do their plants look compared to yours. So just a fantastic reference point as you work through your gardening topics and learn more and more. All right. So enough housekeeping. So let's talk about aquaponics. And specifically, if somebody stepped up to you and said, hey, I got this new thing, and you can grow with no soil, no compost, no mulch, no weeds, no fertilizer, no insecticides, use 90% less water and be 100% all natural. That sounds like the nonsense that you hear. You wake up in the middle of the night and you left the TV on and there's these infomercials going by. That's the kind of stuff that you would expect to be total nonsense. Let's keep that question in your head as we go through and talk about aquaponics. And we're going to start off, rather than me yapping a bunch, I'd like to show you my home system. I have a short video. It's my one and only YouTube video. And I'll warn you up front. So my wife is a first grade teacher. She tells her kids all the stuff that I'm doing in the backyard. They have questions, and specifically they wanted to see the fish. That's why this video was made. So if you're listening to the video and if you feel like someone's talking to you like a first grader, well, they really are. This was made for the kids, but I think it's a good, quick overview of what I'm doing, and then we can go into some details after that. So John.
Miss Manishek is here. She's going to help me, like it or not. There she is. So first, before we catch these fish, let's talk about why they're here. This is what's called an aquaponic system, and it's supposed to be kind of like a pond. In a pond, you have water in the pond, you have fish in the water, and then all the plants on the edge of the shore live from the nutrients of the fish and the nutrients of the soil. And so what we've done here is kind of create something like a pond. So there is a big tank down here with 15 catfish in there. Now the problem I have, it's a black tank and the fish are black and it's kind of dark in there, so it's really hard to see them. So tonight, because you guys requested, we're going to catch one of the fish and try to see how big they are. Now if you look at this, just to understand a little bit, so there's a big tank here which pumps water up into this pipe. And you can kind of see over here how this pipe sends water to the plants, and then the plants grow in these rocks. Now normally plants would grow in the soil, but here the water from the fish is very nutritious, and the plants are able to grow with no soil at all, just because the fish water. Plants really love water that has fish poops and peas, and fish really love water that's been cleaned by plants. So this whole thing is just a big circle, a whole little ecosystem of its own. There's a pump in the tank that pumps up through the pipe to the plants, and then that water goes down a drain and returns back into the tank down here. So now I'm going to pass the phone to Miss Lucy, and we're going to get a net and try to catch one of the fish. So let's see.
You hear those fish?
Yeah, the fish are not thrilled about being caught. They know it's not feeding time. They suspect something. What I've got is a big net. Now the funny part is, even though it's a small tank and I have a big net, they're still really hard to catch. So this is going to take a moment. We might have to scoop several times to finally get one. But once we do, we are going to measure the length of it with a tape measure, which is up here. So I'm going to go ahead and stretch out this tape measure so we can have it ready. I'm going to put it right, there's 2 feet. 2 feet on the tape measure. So there it is right there. So now let me see if I can catch the fish. Now the thing is, catfish grow at different speeds. And so probably some of these are big and some of them are smaller. When I feed them in the morning, I have pellets that I sprinkle in here, and there's one really big one that comes by. Can we catch him? I don't know. Let's make a scoop. Let's see who we come up with. And we'll see what happens. Yeah, you can tell, you can hear they're not thrilled. Come on, guys. Somebody hop in the net for me. I just need one. All right.
Did you get one?
There's somebody in the net.
There's a little, oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I think this is a smaller one. So
Let's see if we can get him up here. Afraid if I take him out of the net, I might have trouble getting him back in.
That's a little one?
Yeah, this is one of the smaller ones. Hey, pal, I'm trying to be your friend.
Oh my goodness.
Because fish are friends, not food. If I stretch his tail out, you can see his tail is about 18 inches long. So he is longer than a ruler. He is 18 inches long. And he is not thrilled to be out of the water.
And he can't breathe.
You know what? Catfish can actually sit on land for quite a while. They're pretty tough. But let's not be mean to him. Let's not. Let's scoop another scoop, see who else we get.
So, do you think that was a little one or a big one?
He's not the biggest. There's another one in there that's bigger. There's another one. Oops. It's kind of stuck on the head. There's another one. Like I said, when I feed him in the morning, there's one that comes by. His head is pretty big. I don't think that was him. All right. Let's scoop another scoop, see who we come up with. I'm going to go way back this time.
Whoa!
The funny part is I probably caught the same super one.
Well,
Let's
you
lay him up here
think?
too. I don't know.
I don't know. This one looks bigger.
This one has got more of a pointy head. Okay, let's kind of lay him out a little bit.
Oh.
Okay, and this one's probably about 17 inches long. So that seems to be about the length, 17 or 18 inches. So I don't know if you can see him because they're kind of tangled up in the net. But there he is.
Those are his gills. He's trying to
those
breathe.
Are his gills, trying to breathe. Catfish have feelers. Catfish have feelers they can use to feel around in the dark because they usually sit in the bottom. That's what we got.
Okay.
So there are. Thank you very much. So we have 15 of them in there, right? We started with 20 when we very first got them. There were three little skinny ones that died right away. So for a long time we had 20. During the Great Ice Age of February 2021. The power kicked off, there was no air, there was no flowing water, so 5 of them died. We were very sad. But that means that there's still 15 of them in there.
And now I'm going to take you guys around so you can see the chickens.
Thank you very much, John. And we do need to get back to chickens someday. Not today, but Joanne, I feel like chickens are related to gardening. So if you would put that on the suggestion list, we can talk about that sometime.
We absolutely want to hear about the chickens later.
All right. And so moving on from the video. So let's talk about what's what. So aquaculture is growing fish, right? You've heard about fish farms, get a big lake, put a lot of fish, you feed them. That's aquaculture. Hydroponics is growing plants just in water in some kind of nutrient solution. If you've ever taken a cutting of a plant and poked it into a glass of water, then you have done hydroponics. Yes, that was very simple hydroponics, but you've done hydroponics. Now, the question is, what happens when you combine the two? What happens when you combine aquaculture and hydroponics? And you end up with aquaponics. And there's some fantastic benefits to doing that. And part of the reason is, aquaculture, if you grow a bunch of fish in a lake, a lot of fish waste builds up in that lake. And what are you going to, what are you going to do? Are you going to dump it into a nearby stream? Is that going to cause an algae bloom? That much waste all at once is wholly unnatural. What damage might it do? So aquaculture has got some questions. Hydroponics, same thing. There are times when you have to flush your system for one reason or another, and you have a lot of nutrient solution, and you want to dump it out. Well, where do you dump it out, and what is that going to do damage? All those, this sudden rush of nutrients going into what? Onto a piece of land, into a stream? Where are you going to dump it? That's a big question there. But when you talk aquaponics, all you do is feed your fish, and then the waste from the fish is immediately used by your plants. So you've got this wonderful circle of biology that by combining aquaculture and hydroponics to create, aquaculture and hydroponics to create aquaponics, you get this wonderful cycle of just, any waste that's generated is immediately used up. And therefore it's kind of a self-contained, very nice, very clean system. And kind of like aquaponics, it doesn't have to be complicated. If you look at the picture on the right, This is some little kit that you can order off of Amazon. It looks like if you put a beta in a cup of water with a plant, the beta will nibble on the roots and he'll do his business in the water, and that will fertilize the plant and the plant will grow more roots. So this whole thing can be as simple as you want it to be, or as complicated as you want it to be. Again, if you enjoy tinkering, if you enjoy the intellectual side, this is a great place to be. Now, I should say that this is not a new idea. There are some like fairly elaborate, fairly detailed books that go way, way back into history. China, 5,000 years of history. They used to, and I think still do, put fish in their rice paddies. And so they're, the fish are, swimming, amongst the rice plants. They do their business in the water that fertilizes the rice plants, and therefore their rice production is even better. The Aztecs, Southeast Asia, like I said, we are not the first people to think about this. So fantastic topic with a long history. Now, as you kind of study aquaponics, you'll see there are kind of 4 classic systems out there, kind of 4 different types of systems you're going to see everywhere. Most of them are not really suitable for home. But on a smaller scale, you can pull some good ideas from them. So let's look at those 4 classic systems. So the first classic system is what they call floating raft. And basically what you do is you build a wooden box and you drop a sheet of plastic on top so that you make it watertight. Fill it up with water, put a styrofoam lid on it, poke some holes in the styrofoam, and you drop your seedlings through those little holes so that their roots dangle in the water. What you're not seeing here is that out of the picture, there's a big tank full of fish, and they're pumping the fish water from the fish tank through this big long trough. And then, of course, it recycles, at the end of the trough, it goes back into the fish tank. So they have this big circle of water carrying the nutrients. This is what you'll normally see in industry. If you go to a place that has a giant greenhouse, and some of these greenhouses are many, many acres. You'll see rows and rows and rows of these long grow beds, these floating raft deep water beds. And again, just a big long box full of water. So that's one of the classic configurations, one of the classic types of aquaponic systems. The next classic type you'll see is what they call media-based. And there's this stuff, it's the same stuff that they make flower pots out of. Basically, they take the clay and they roll it into little balls and they kind of fluff it up like a Cheeto a little bit. It's a little bit airy, it's a little bit porous. They cook it just like you would cook a flower pot. And then you get a big bag of this stuff and you dump this into a tray. And this kind of takes the place of soil. Soil, if it's got too much water, it gets heavy, it chokes the plant, bacteria sets in. But these clay balls, they're very porous. It's very easy for the water to flow through there. So you can pump, your fish water into these trays, and the water just flows on through and goes out a drain on the other side. Very clean, very nice. And these media-based balls give a nice place for bacteria to grow. There's kind of like making yogurt. There are a lot of good bacteria that will grow in your system all on its own. And so to have the water flowing through that stuff is just very, very nice. And in addition, these little clay balls act as a filter. So any solids, you have your fish, pooping and peeing in the pool. Any poops will get caught in these clay balls, and it'll break down into the minerals. And then, of course, your plants are right there, able to use all the nutrients the plants are producing. On the one hand, this is very nice for people that are new to aquaponics, because if you're used to planting your plants in some kind of a media, this is very natural. The only catch is these little clay balls are kind of expensive. It's been a while since I bought a bag, but I think it was about 2 cubic feet. And I think I paid like $50 or something like that. Luckily, they'll last you forever. But yeah, when you buy them for the very first time, they're kind of expensive. So that's the second typical type of aquaponic system, is that media-based. A third type, which you'll see in industry a lot, is you get these long plastic tubes. They look kind of like rain gutters, but they're closed even on the top. And what they'll do is they'll put these tubes up on top of a sawhorse, and they'll make, one side be a little bit higher. And someplace there will be a big tank of fish, and they'll pump their fish water into the high side, and they'll let it flow down through that long tube and then spill back into the fish tank. And you can drill holes in the top, just kind of like in the same way earlier we talked about having holes in the styrofoam for your seedlings. Here you can have holes in the top of the plastic for your plants. This is not hard to build. You can do this fairly cheaply, especially if you use like rain gutters or something like that. Very popular in industry, large scale. But one of the big problems with this is, especially in Texas sun, these tubes heat up. You've got your plants, sitting in these, their roots are dangling inside these tubes. And in hot Texas sun, these things heat up in the summer, and it's too much. You'll end up cooking the roots of your plant. So this looks great, easy to build, but like I said, just not good in the Texas sun. And then the last typical configuration you'll see, and you've probably seen these on TV or maybe the internet, is some kind of a vertical system. And what you do is you stack your plants in one way or another. You have little tubes. If you look at the picture, there's little black tubes that pump water up to the top. And of course, you water the top plant, and then it drains into the next plant and the next plant and the next plant. And on the one hand, this is very nice because you can stack your plants. You can stack them 8 or 10 feet tall. And that's great. You can grow a lot of stuff in one place. But these little hoses, they really get clogged up easily. Even if you're doing hydroponics, with hydroponics, things tend to get a little bit crusty because you have all these nutrients in the water, all these fertilizers in the water. In an aquaponics system, if you've got any fish waste at all, it'd be very easy to imagine these little tubes getting clogged up at all. In the same way. I've seen like a lot of YouTube videos out of like India and Asia where they do it this way with fish, but I would not recommend this at all. The little hose gets clogged up and you have a whole column of plants die. Kind of a drag. So I would avoid that. I would stay. We're going to talk more about basically the deep water and the media based. Like I said, the nutrient film doesn't work in Texas sun. This gets clogged up. But let's take ideas from those different types of systems, and let's talk about what you can do for a home system for yourself. At this point, let me pause and take a breath. John, do we have any questions? Are we doing okay?
We're doing great. Question for you. This is kind of an odd one, but obviously there's been a market for seaweed now. People are eating seaweed all the time. Is there a saltwater equivalent to this?
You know what? That's a darn good question. I have never seen such a thing. Actually, it's not completely true. I think on rare occasions, I've seen some YouTube videos where they've done it. Wow, it's been really rare that I've come across any such thing. All the systems I've ever seen, personally, or going to visit, professional installations, they've always been fresh water.
Which brings me to another question we've had, and this is obviously given that today is one of those rare Houston days where we have a hard freeze. How do you deal with if you're in obviously the heat more of an issue during the summer, but the fact that it's a 26-degree day outside? How do you deal with that?
Normally it's not a problem. If you think back to the video, I had made kind of a PVC trellis that goes over my system. It's kind of a greenhouse. It's just a big grid of PVC, and I screwed it into the house on one side and the fence on the other side. So as you walk into my system, you have a cover. Usually in the winter, what I'll do is just pull some plastic across there. The fish do have a heater, that big tank where the fish were. I believe there's a 100-watt heater in there, and I try to keep their temperature at about 70 degrees. Okay. In the winter, that does drop some. But what you get is you have all this warm water flowing through the whole system. So number one, your system doesn't freeze. Number two, your plants that are in the system, that heat is wafting up. They don't freeze. So even the past years, I've had no trouble in winter.
Makes sense. Well, listen, we're getting a lot of thumbs up and likes on Facebook, and people are loving it. So I'll let you get back to it.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. So we just took a look at basically the 4 typical ways to configure a system, the 4 typical types of systems. But let's talk about what you can do. I'm assuming that you don't have a 10-acre greenhouse and you're not going to grow 1 million fish. So let's talk about what you can do. So again, here's a picture of my system. This is the same system that you saw in the video earlier. To reiterate just a bit, so this is an 85-gallon stock tank down on the bottom. If you go to this Tractor Supply store, stock tanks, and when I say stock tank, this is like for cows and horses, right? 85-gallon stock tank. The fish are in there. I forget the price of it, but it wasn't prohibitive. These trays that are sitting on top of these card tables are actually concrete mixing trays from Home Depot. And I think I paid about $12 for those. Now, one of the things that we should talk about is as you build your system, you're supposed to keep it food safe. When I got those concrete mixing trays, it was exactly the shape and size and everything that I was looking for. I knew it would be durable because you mix concrete in them, but it wasn't food safe. And I went ahead and did it anyway because I thought about it some and I decided that, I didn't think it would be a big deal for me. And so I cut that corner. Anything that you buy for horses, cows, animals will also be food safe because animals have the same food safety requirements that people do. And the other day I was in Tractor Supply sniffing around to see what was new. And I saw they had these exact same trays, but food safe. And they were about $20 each. So, the price was definitely more than the $12 each that I paid. But to be able to pay a couple bucks more, get something food safe, I've thought about swapping out my trays. So I've got some trays here. Now, these trays are actually deep water. There's nothing in them but water, and they have a styrofoam lid. So if you look at these plants, they're planted in a little plastic cup that has a bunch of holes in it. And I put some of that media, some of that clay-based media, those round cooked terracotta pellets. You put your plant in the pot, put some pellets with it, drop it in the hole. So their roots are actually dangling in the water inside that tray. So we've got kind of deep water on one side. It's really hard to see in this picture, but there's 3 more trays on the far side that do have those media pellets. So in my home-based system, I'm running both media-based and deep water. And again, one of the big benefits of the media-based is it acts as a filter for the solids from the fish. So there are a lot of extra, parts to the system that you can purchase or parts to the system that you can build. But having that media there, it houses a lot of bacteria. It filters out your solids. This is a nice, simple system that does everything it's supposed to do with no extra parts. So I think that something like this could be very useful for your home. And the nice thing is that your system doesn't have to be exactly like this. Now, as you put your system together, there are a few magic numbers. Your grow beds, the volume of your grow beds should be 1 to 2 times the volume of your fish tank. So if I have an 85-gallon fish tank down low, the volume of my grow beds should be double that, or perhaps even a little bit more. If you start to have too much grow beds, your fish aren't going to be able to produce enough nutrients to keep your plants happy. And you'll see that your plants aren't really growing, and perhaps they're even turning yellow some. Again, just watch the magic numbers. As you buy your tubs, whatever you do, just keep, like I said, grow bed 1 to 2 times the fish tank volume. Your pump should be able to cycle the entire system in 1 hour or less. And the thing about pumps is, when you go online, so let's do a little bit of math. So let's say that we've got like an 85-gallon fish tank down here. These trays are 20 gallons each. I've actually got 6 of them, right? There's 3 that you can't see here. So 6 times 20 is 120. Add the fish tank. So I have just a hair over 200 gallons in my system. And what you would think is, I will go buy a 200 gallon per hour pump. That's how pumps are rated, GPH, gallons per hour. But no, for a couple different reasons. Number one, marketing people. I don't know if these pumps are pumping water downhill or how they measure that stuff, but they never live up to the marketing. They never pump, what is advertised. And then also, as soon as you start pumping things through any kind of a pipe, there's actually friction between the water and the pipe. And that slows down as well. And of course, the farther you pump something, the more branches you have, the more your water slows down. So I would really suggest that you double whatever you think you need as a pump, double it, or perhaps even a little bit more. And that way, as you pump your water up from your fish tank and as it goes through the pipes, you'll be able to cycle your system in an hour the way that you want it to be.
Let me interrupt you for just 1 second, Benny. You're showing Joseph on Facebook wanted to see a close up of the looks of the trays which you've got there, but he also was curious: is the media you're talking about, is that rock wool?
No, it's not rock wool. I've actually got some. I don't know if you can see it here. See, is my picture on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So if I hold this up to my camera, it's a little tiny ball. This little ball is about a 1/2 inch in diameter. And again, they take clay and they roll it into balls, and then they do something to it to puff it up like a Cheeto. So this is not like a hard pellet, that you would shoot out of a slingshot or something. This is kind of like a clay Cheeto. And basically you have a tray full of this stuff. And in fact, let's take a quick look. I have got a slide down here. And the purpose of the slide was actually to show something else. But right here, if you look at this tray, I think you guys can see my mouse. Yes.
Yes.
All right. So here, this is actually taken on the media-based side. Now this basil plant is not planted correctly. I came home with some basil and I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, where I was going to put it, and I knew it needed some water. So I actually pushed it down into those clay pebbles, and then kind of forgot about it and left it there. And wow, it was so happy. But you can see this tray is almost filled to the top with these clay pellets. And you can kind of play games, kind of adjust your pipes so that the water level is about 1 inch below the top of the clay pellets. So if you think back to that video that we watched earlier, there was one part where we kind of parted the plants and you could see the water coming into the tray. Well, this tray has a spigot in the back to the left. It's out of the picture, you can't see it, but water is coming into the tray and it's filling up that tray. And then there's a little drain pipe, and I've actually adjusted that drain pipe so that the water level is about 1 inch below the top of these pellets. Awesome. Now, rock wool is a different thing. We'll actually get back to this in just a bit. It's kind of like home insulation. You would use it differently. But let's actually save that question for just a moment. We'll get back to it.
Sounds good. All right, we'll get back to it.
And are there any other questions while we're stopped?
Just a comment from Ethan said he believed they were called Leccas, Leca was the name of the
yeah, it's actually an acronym. I'm trying to think for exactly what it stands for.
We'll keep going. Yeah. If you think of it along the way, we can get back to it.
In the shower tonight, midnight, I'll think of it. And oh yeah, too late. So
stay tuned, Ethan. We'll get you an answer.
Yeah, usually the people that talk about like Leica or Leica, usually they're orchid people. It's used in orchids quite a bit because some people grow orchids in kind of a nutrient solution. Usually when you're at aquaponics, people will refer to it as Hydroton. Now, I believe that Hydroton is a brand name, but it's kind of like crescent wrench. It's one of those words that people use for the object, no matter where it came from. You can see a bag of this stuff in the picture. Again, it's a bit expensive, but luckily it does last a long time. So buy a bag, you'll have it forever. Also, more magic numbers. As you plan how many fish you're going to have in your system, you need to stop and think about how big those fish are going to be. And you can actually Google like catfish. You normally harvest catfish when they hit about 18 inches. You can go online, you can Google how many pounds is an 18-inch catfish, and you'll get a very nice chart that will show you all the weights for all the different sizes. You can do a little bit of math, and usually you want your fish, the mature size of your fish to be about 5 to 10 gallons per system water for your whole system. So as you add up not just your fish tank, but your entire system, you're looking to have about 1 pound of mature fish per 5 to 10 gallons of system. Now, I've had people ask me, hey, you got a lot of catfish in that tank. It's not a big tank. You know what? Catfish, they like to lay on the bottom. They lay on the bottom kind of the same way that like wieners come in the package. They just all go down there together and they just kind of hang out. If you do something like tilapia, they're a little bit more social. They're moving. You might need a larger tank, but you can stuff a lot of catfish into a small tank and do just fine. This last comment is not really a magic number, but I would say, and this is probably the biggest problem with my system, is really it should be on the morning side of your house. You may have noticed that you've never seen fish sunbathing, and the reason is that fish don't need sun. Fish don't like sun. Yes, your plants need some sun, but your fish don't. My system is on the south side of my house, and in the really, really bad heat of the summer, it really heats up a lot more than I would like for it to. I've never had my fish die from heat, but I know that it stresses them. I've had my water temperature get up into the 90s, even mid 90s. And I think that's really pushing the limits of what they can tolerate. Plus, as you heat water up, it loses oxygen. It basically heats the oxygen out of the water. So that's just not good for anybody. So if you can put your system in a place where you're going to get some of that, you just, maybe half a day's worth of sun. Most of your leafy greens don't need a lot of sun anyway. Put it someplace where it's not going to get cooked by the heat of the day. You'll be better off. Starting your system. Once you piece your system together, get all your tubs and plumb it together, find a pump that's going to, circulate it within an hour. You need to start up your system. And most of the places that you look, most of the books, the YouTube videos, they have this quite elaborate, what's the word for it? Just all these complicated steps that you got to go through to, monitor your ammonia and monitor this and that and get the biology rolling for your system. You know what? You don't need to do that. You don't need to do any of that. Fill your system up with water, run it for a couple days, maybe in a week, check it over with a flashlight, make sure it's not leaking anywhere, fix your leaks if it is, and then put some goldfish in there. Just go down to the pet store and buy 5 or 10 bucks worth of goldfish and throw them in there. And they will jumpstart all the biology, everything that you need. Goldfish are disproportionately dirty for their little size. So even though they're small, they will poop and pee and they will get all the biology started. And it's kind of like yogurt or anything else. All the biology that you need, it's already out there. It's just waiting for a chance to bloom. When you put your goldfish in there, just run it for maybe 10 days or probably a couple weeks would be better. And all of your biology will automatically establish itself. And then you can start adding plants and adding some small fish. Speaking of plants, let's talk about the kind of things that would like to grow in an aquaponic system. So lettuce is the classic crop. I was in a meeting. I remember Stephanie was there, and Stephanie had recently toured, I forget if it was hydroponic or aquaponic facility, but she described it as being like a lettuce factory. And that's exactly how these places are. If you go to an aquaponic, like an industrial, commercial aquaponic facility, they'll have, a couple great big, couple 10-foot tanks of fish, and they will have these long, deep water, troughs of typically lettuce and small greens. So again, lettuce is, just the stereotypical crop. Lettuce goes from seed to basically plate and 30 days or perhaps just a little bit more. If you get good lettuce seed from something like Johnny's Seeds, lettuce will literally sprout the very next day. In 30 days, you'll have a very nice baby lettuce. Give it 2 more weeks and you'll have like a full-size head of lettuce. So in 6 weeks, you can grow basically, a salad. Every head of lettuce is going to be a very nice salad. So that is the typical crop, is basically your small leafy greens. Any kind of herbs that can that love water or can tolerate water will do fantastic. In the picture here, I'm actually growing watercress. And you know what? Watercress, we need to advertise this as the solution to world hunger. I think I got some from one of the grocery stores, like a Fiesta grocery store, and threw it in the tank. Didn't even put any media there. Didn't even put, any kind of a cover on it. Threw it in there, and it was kind of floating in a circle, and that kind of bothered me some, watching it float in a circle. So I put a brick in there. I put a brick so that the top of the brick was just below the water line, and put that little sprig of watercress on top of that brick so it wouldn't float around. And that thing went crazy. And I've ended up, filling up 2 trays. And again, just, a small leafy green. It's not going to be tall. It grows quickly. It's very kind of spicy, good for stir fries. You add a little bit to a salad to add a zing. Just again, your small leafy greens, those are the things that want to be in an aquaponic system. And of course, it's not just the small leafy greens that you're used to. Asia in particular, they have a lot of leafy greens that we typically don't, or at least I didn't growing up, had never heard of, had never eaten. And, a lot of them grow very quickly. You can use a lot of them in all, like this particular picture is Kang Kong. You can eat the leaves in a salad. The stems, you can snip them up and use them in stir fries or throw those in the salad as well. The great part about this is, again, they love water. And so to put them in the water in an aquaponic system, they're just so happy. Their roots, if you ever lift up one of the lids on these aquaponic systems, there's this huge, crazy mass of roots underneath that will just shock you. And like I said, these plants, whether you do it media-based or whether you put them in little net pots with some, in a deep water system, they just love it and they grow like crazy. Here's a picture of some cucumbers that I did. These cucumbers are actually being grown hydroponically rather than aquaponically. But the moral of the story is, if you're willing to support your plants, your taller plants, if you give them some support, they will be happy to grow in either a hydroponic or an aquaponic system. When you do have all those little clay beads in a tray, they kind of roll around a little bit. And so if you have a plant there, maybe like a jalapeno plant that's gotten a couple feet tall, if a high wind comes along, there's a chance it's going to push your plant over. So a little bit of support will go a long way. I've heard of people, people grow tomatoes in aquaponic systems. I've heard of people growing papaya trees in an aquaponic system. You know what? If you can put it in a place where the wind is not going to get it, if you can put it in a place where it's going to have a little bit of support, there is nothing to stop you. When I do have cage plants, things like jalapeno that start to get a little bit tall, usually what I'll do is I'll get one of those kind of tomato cages, and I'll cut the feet off the tomato cage, right? It's usually the feet of the tomato cage that you would push into the ground to kind of anchor the cage. Usually I'll cut those feet off and I'll put that over the bush, and it doesn't really poke down into the media, into the clay pebbles, but it does give the plant just a little bit of support, something to lean on. And that way, if you do get some high winds, your plant's got some support and it's not going to fall over. But, with a little bit of support, cage plants, bush tomatoes, peppers, pepino melons, just about anything that's not going to get crazy tall will work in an aquaponic system. And if you're doing the clay pellets, you can even grow your root crops. The root crops will grow down into the media pebbles in the same way that they would normally grow down into the dirt. And the nice thing is you can actually pull them out of the media, because the media is very loose, very rolly. You can actually pull them up and look at them and then stick them back in the media, really without damaging them. So, if you want to move things around a little bit, if you want to check on your radishes or your carrots and see how they're doing, you can actually pull them up and look at them and then put them back. Try that in a soil-based garden. And don't think that it has to be just things that are very quick growing leafy greens. I've got some pineapples in my system. I run my system. I normally run it year round. And so the question is, in the worst of the winter, when, maybe the leafy greens are done, what are you going to have in there to keep using up the nutrients that the fish are producing, right? You wouldn't want to run your system with just a bunch of fish and have that fish waste build up and kill the fish. So, to have something in there at all times. I've actually got some pineapple tops. If you take a pineapple and twist that top off, don't cut the pineapple so that you have like this, part of the pineapple connected to your stem. Just grab the green part, twist it off, push it down into the media of your aquaponic system, and it'll start growing. If you look at this picture, you'll see it's actually blooming. I've gotten several pineapples out of my aquaponic system. So there's actually a bloom back there in the picture. You can see it doing its thing. And then lots of other perennials, Brazilian spinach, Okinawa spinach, longevity spinach. Again, things that you typically didn't grow up eating, but can easily find on eBay for a couple dollars. These things would just love to be in your system, and they're great because you don't have to be planting things all the time. I get tired of planting. So to plant some different spinaches and what have you, some watercress, and just let that stuff grow all year long, I love it. Because then you can walk outside at any time with a plate, make yourself a salad, and it's minimal work. It's very nice. All right. Simple plantings. Let me show you how things get planted. And I'm holding some things up to the camera. I'm hoping that you can see. This is a net pot, and it's a plastic pot with a bunch of holes in it. And the way that there are actually two different ways that you can plant in this. One, if you would like to plant with rock wool, which is kind of like home insulation, They actually take rock, melt it, and they spin it up like cotton candy, and then cut it into little blocks. So it's all natural in the sense that it came from rocks. You can buy this stuff in sheets on Amazon or eBay. And if you want to plant seeds, this is the way to go. If you look at it, it's got a little tiny hole in the top of the block. Drop your seed in there. Drop your rock wool into the cup. Drop your cup into the hole in the styrofoam lid, and pile. You're basically ready to go. Usually, what I do is after I plant my seeds like that, I'll come back and I'll water them a little bit. Make sure that these blocks get wet. Also, make sure that when you drop them through the styrofoam, that they're touching the water underneath. And these little blocks will soak up the water for the seed. They'll give the seed a place to have some roots, something to grab onto. So one way to plant things in a deep water culture is with these net cups and rock wool. Another way to do it, and especially if you have some seedlings. So let's say that you have maybe like some basil. You've got some basil and it's already got some roots on it. You can take your net cup and just put your basil into the net cup. And then with your hand, just, put some of those clay pellets into the net pot. Just fill it up. And then same thing, drop that net cup into your deep water system, right? You're going to have your deep water system will have a styrofoam lid with holes cut in it. Drop your net cup in there. And again, make sure that your net cup is reaching down to the water. I like for my water to just barely touch the net cup. If you look, you can actually see, even though I just dropped that seedling into this net cup, the roots are already poking out the bottom. The roots will hang in the water without the plant being submerged too much. And it'll start to grow like that. It'll just go crazy. So look, fingernails are still nice and clean, right? Didn't even have to get my hands dirty. We planted with both media and with the rock wool. And again, if you look at a picture like this, you can kind of see, again, here's another system. And this system is actually hydroponic as opposed to aquaponic. You'll notice there's no fish, no pipes. But you'll see that you'll recognize the styrofoam lid. And you'll recognize that there are holes cut in the lid. It's a 3-inch hole. I'm using 3-inch net cups. That works out very conveniently. And so these are tomato plants. And I took my seedlings and I dropped them into a net cup, and I, with my hand, scooped a little bit of hydroton up onto them and dropped them in there. And again, they go crazy. You lift up that lid, the roots underneath are just absolutely shocking. So these things go crazy. All right. So we've kind of talked about what to grow in your system. John, do we have any questions? What to grow, how to grow?
I think everybody's excited about hearing about the fish. So,
all right.
We got lots of people watching and lots of likes. So you are commanding a big audience.
Nice. Let's talk about fish. And you know what? The fish are so cool because you know what? When you walk out there in the morning, let me ask you this. With a soil-based garden, have you ever walked out to your garden and literally had your garden jump up and splash, so excited because you were there?
No, I have not.
You're supposed to feed your fish at roughly the same time each day, and they learn pretty darn quickly. They're catfish, they're not domestic fish. And so, the first couple of days they hide from you, but after that, they learn in a real hurry that, oh, it's feeding time and this guy is bringing us food. They're so happy. They splash and they jump and they come up to the top of the water to look at you. It's more than a garden. It's an entertainment system. It's fantastic.
Fish TV.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Speaking of that, there are days when I take a lawn chair and I just go sit back there. The sound of the running water, just watching the fish, circling on the bottom, looking at the plants, just makes me happy to be out there. So speaking of the fish, though, not every kind of fish wants to be here in Texas. Tilapia, if you look at the temperature ranges, tilapia will die if the temperature gets below 60 degrees. If you have a large system and it gets down to 20 degrees outside like it is today, your little 100-watt heater is not going to keep up. Your tank is going to get too cold and all your fish are going to die. So despite the fact that I have never met a tilapia that I didn't like, I don't think that tilapia is a good choice for Texas. Perhaps if you have like a greenhouse, a temperature-controlled greenhouse, and your aquaponics system is going to be indoors in the greenhouse, okay, that sounds great. That sounds believable. But without temperature control, your tilapia are not going to last. Trout, same thing. I've never met a trout I didn't like, but look at these temperatures. They like cold water, right? 35 degrees to 68 degrees. How are you going to chill your water and keep it to only 68 degrees? Your trout are not going to make it. Whereas catfish are darn near indestructible. You can almost freeze them. So down to 35 degrees, they will not die. They will stay alive. And up to 95 degrees, they will stay alive. Now, I have, a heater in my system. I don't let my catfish get that cold. I set my thermostat on 70. It'll dip into the 60s and 50s. I've never gotten down to 35, but my catfish have always done just fine. I do have heat problems. I have had my system get as high as 95 and have never lost fish due to temperature. So it seems that catfish are darn near indestructible, and the fact that they grow pretty quickly just makes it even better. Usually you buy your catfish in March. There's a place, Danbury Fish Farms, south of Houston. We'll chat the link for that place in the chat here so you can see. Usually they deliver little fingerlings, little finger-sized fish in March. You go down, you buy a bag of them, throw them in your system. Usually by December, your catfish are 18, 19, 20 inches long, ready to be harvested. So not only are catfish very durable, temperature-wise, they also basically grow in a year. So at the end of the year, when it really starts to get ugly cold, if you would like, you can harvest your fish. If you would like to leave your system running, throw some goldfish in there, or you could drain your system and perhaps replumb it or expand it, whatever you want to do. But again, catfish, not just durable, but they grow very quickly. That's very nice. Feeding your fish. I feed my fish every day. That takes a grand total of about 2 minutes to get my little scoop and walk outside and throw it in there. That's mostly what I do in a day. So very little maintenance once you get your system up and running. When I do see people that are having trouble with their systems, it's usually because they're overfeeding. So you need to feed your fish about 2% of their body weight per day. You should have some idea how many fish you've got. Google, for my size fish, what is their body weight? Do some math. And again, feed them only about 2% of their body weight. Any food that's still lingering after 15 minutes, that's too much. You need to scoop it out. If you leave it in there, your thing will just get nasty and it just goes downhill from there. When you do feed them Rangen, it's the only place that I know to get bulk catfish food. Usually I'll go once a year and I'll buy a 50-pound bag, and it's about $30, but that'll last me all year long and then some. It actually lasts about a year and a half. So one bag of food will keep you going for a long, long time. But again, don't overfeed. Now, what's really interesting is, again, you can kind of monitor your system. You've got this cycle of biology going where you've got your fish, right? And your fish are in the water. They pee in the pool. That's ammonia. Fish don't have little pee-pees. They actually exhale the ammonia into the water through their gills in the same way that you exhale carbon dioxide through your lungs as you breathe air. So they exhale their ammonia. There's a bacteria that breaks that ammonia down into nitrite. And then there's another type of bacteria that breaks that down into nitrate. And the nitrate is what your plants love. If you've ever heard people talk about fertilizers, just agriculture fertilizers in general, a lot of times that term nitrate will go by. So there's a little system that's going, and with a nice water test kit, you can actually test this at different points and see, well, what is my ammonia level? And what is my nitrite level? And what is my nitrate level? And if your system is healthy, your ammonia level will be basically 0, and your nitrate level will be basically 0. And you want to have a certain amount of nitrate in there. Basically, that's what you're looking for, though. That's the cycle that you're looking for. City water normally comes out of the tap at a pH of about 8.5 or something like that, and that's way high. You really want your pH to be someplace around about 6.5 or 7.5. There's some products out there. One of the products is called pH Down that you can get. And you put a cap full of that in there and then check your system again the next day, and the pH will have come down some. There's another product that I found that's much, much better, and it's actually phosphoric acid. And you can get this stuff on Amazon. I think I paid about $20 for this bottle, but it's much stronger than pH Down. You put like half a capful in your system. lasts much longer, brings the pH down further, and apparently phosphoric acid is used quite a bit in traditional agricultures. So even though phosphoric acid sounds terrible, sounds like a chem lab, apparently it's widely used and well respected, well received.
Benny, if I could interrupt you here real quick, we had a question kind of backing up a little bit. What about critters? Any problems with critters in the backyard that might be either attracted to the plants or the fish?
If you're asking about insects, no. If you've ever gone from doing in-ground gardening to raised bed gardening, you'll notice as you move up, the bugs that get into your system are just much, much, much less. And I'm running my aquaponics system on top of a table. So insects, stink bugs, aphids, I don't remember the last time I saw any bad insect in my system. So insects, no. Critters, I do have a couple possums that go through my yard each night. My dog sits by the window and throws a fit when they go by. I think that because the whole system is up high, it's kind of off their radar. So I know I have possums out there. There was one year I found some mouse poops. Wasn't quite sure what to do about them, but the poops quit showing up. We have some neighborhood cats. I like to think the cats did me a favor.
What about mosquitoes? I mean, I guess the water is moving, so there's no chance it's not stagnant water. So, or if the mosquitoes get into the tank, they're extra food for the catfish, I guess.
Yeah. In fact, you know what? It's one of the downsides of a very simple hydroponic system. I don't want to beat on hydroponics. If you're doing hydroponics without a pump, so that the water is just sitting. I was after these tomatoes did their thing. I took one of them out to look down the hole, and oh my gosh, a little swarm of mosquitoes came out of this because that water was stagnant. In an aquaponic system, your water is, number one, it's always moving, and number two, fish like to eat mosquito larvae. Right. So I've never had problems with mosquitoes in a moving aquaponic system.
And Thomas had a question on Facebook. Raccoons getting at the fish. Any problem with raccoons?
You know what? We have, again, possums in the yard. I've never seen a raccoon in our yard, in our neighborhood. I know they're nearby because I've seen them in some of the parks, but no, I've never had any problems. I did build, again, if you go back to that picture of my system, I did build a heavy wooden door.
I noticed that.
Yeah, with the expectation. I built that. I took some decking material and kind of kludged that together. But I very deliberately chose some heavier lumber with the assumption that some raccoon would really love to come by and try to lift it up and see what's in there. No, I haven't had any problems with raccoons.
And I guess if you did, you can always then solve that problem as it comes up. Not the end of the world, and certainly a problem that could be solved. Awesome, thank you. I'll let you get back into it. Thanks, doing great.
All right, I do see that we're coming towards our target time limit. I'll try to step on the gas. Again, you can download the PDF and read all this at your leisure. So I'm going to kind of zoom through some of the rest of the slides. Actually, so water parameters, what you're really looking for, you want your pH a little bit low. Your oxygen should be 4 parts per million or more, or otherwise your fish and plants will not be happy. Your nitrate should be a little bit high. There should be no nitrites. I'll show you a test system that you can use in a little while to test those numbers and see what's up. And we'll talk about that just a little bit more. But if you look at any of the kind of the plant nutrient charts, you'll notice that if your pH, and this goes for soil as well, if your pH is too low, the plants are not able to pick up the nutrients, even if they are there. If your pH goes too high, plants can't pick up the nutrients, even if they are there. So 6.5 to 7.5 is kind of a magic range. Not just for pH, not just for aquaponic systems, but for soil as well. So there's a little learning from soil-based systems that we can take over into aquaponics. There is that question of continuous or yearly. If you put some goldfish or koi in your system or what have you, maybe run a heater in the winter, you can run your system year round. I like catfish because you can conk them on the head and invite them into the kitchen. But you don't have to do that. If you have no interest in cleaning fish, you can put some other kind of fish in there and just run your system year round, and it will work just fine. Now, when it does come to testing your water, you got to use the drop systems. I think I paid about $30 for this kit, and it tests everything that I want to test and then some. Those little paper test strips that you get and you dip them in the water. Number one, the colors that you see never match the little chart. What are you supposed to do with that? The chart shows, shades of yellow. Yours is orange. What do you do with that? And also, they're terribly inaccurate, and they get even more inaccurate as they sit on the shelf. So you really want to buy a nice test system that does drops. And yes, that means that you have to get a little test tube and scoop some water and put 8 drops in there. And you have to count the drops, and you got to wait 60 seconds. But the answers that you're going to get out of those drop-based systems are just 10 times better. Actually, it's not even, it's more like 100 times better. With those paper-based testers, you're going to kill some fish. It's going to be confusing, but you get like a nice drop-based system, and you can test that whole little circle of biology all the way around and know exactly what's going on. That makes it much easier to diagnose your problems. And plus, it's just kind of fun to just understand in general, exactly what's happening at each step. My wife did get me this thing. I think this thing was about $300 or something. She got me this one year for Christmas. It has a little sensor that hangs in the fish tank. And this is very nice because when I go by and feed the fish, I can look at the pH, I can look at the temperature, and I don't have to do any kind of like a little test strip or drops or what have you. I can just glance at it. And what's really neat is a little SD card plugs into the bottom of this thing. And so I can actually get that little SD card, take it in the house, and it has all the recordings. I think it takes measurements every 10 minutes. And it saves this stuff basically until the card gets full. So you can, if you're, a data geek, you can record your data and take that inside and look to see how does your pH actually fluctuate as you go through the day? How does your pH fluctuate, in warm days versus cold days? And, how has it been slowly fluctuating, across the many months that you've been running your system? So there's some neat things out there, some neat tools. Yes, they cost a few dollars, but they're going to make your life way easier. While we're thinking about things, let's talk about this. Now, again, we talked about earlier, fish don't normally sunbathe. You've never gone to the beach and seen fish laying up on the sand. So you're probably looking at this and you're probably wondering what happened here. So let me give you a little history. I have a dog, wonderful dog. She's a rescue. She's beautiful. Everybody wants to have her. She's a running dog, though. And I like to take her out to this empty land on the side of the freeways and let her just run through these empty fields. And typically, as I follow her, at one point or another, I end up next to some lake or a pond, poking a stick in there. And I was there one day and I found this giant snail. The snail was amazing. This snail was bigger than a golf ball. Big old giant snail. And as I looked, I found several more snails. I found 6 or 8 of these things. And I remember holding up one of these snails, telling the snail that you're going to be so happy. I'm going to put you in my aquaponic system and you're going to eat all the algae that you could ever want. And you're going to clean my tank and the world is going to be happy and you're going to be happy and I'm going to be happy. Okay. So I put them in my tank. Now let's fast forward about 3 months. So I'm standing in front of Mount Rushmore and I'm looking at Mount Rushmore. And if you've ever gone to Mount Rushmore, there's not a lot more to do there. You go and you look, and after about 15 minutes, everybody agrees that, yep, there it is. We've seen it. I'm standing there, my son calls me, and my son tells me, hey, your aquaponic system is spewing water everywhere. There's water coming out all over the place. The side of the house is flooding. Your fish are flopping around in the tank. There's only a couple alive, and most of them are dead. Oh my gosh. Well, son, turn on your brain. The water should be going in a circle. Take a look and see if you can figure out what's up. Tells me, Dad, you have a golf ball stuck in one of your pipes. No, son, I don't play golf. Yes, Dad, there's something big around in one of these pipes. Well, son, get your finger in there, get a screwdriver, and pry that thing out of there. Lo and behold, one of those fish had crawled into the pipe and clogged up that pipe. I can't tell you, to have something you've been working on for all year and to have a bunch of dead fish and what have you, it's just like somebody hit me in the stomach. But I told him, I told him, Phil, get that snail out of there. If you see any more snails, get them out. Fill the whole system back up with water. I'll be home in about 5 days. I'll worry about it then. And I remember just dreading coming home. I get home, I go back to the side of the house, and it was absolutely disgusting. I open up my tank, the little wooden door, and I look in there, and it's all frothy and nasty. I've had kids, I've got a son, I've changed my fair share of diapers, and this gagged me more than anything I've seen in my life. There's all these dead fish floating around in there, and their skin is coming off. Just disgusting. It was all I could do to just go get a net and hold my breath and run in there and scoop one and take it and throw it in the garden and get a breath and then run back to get another one. Just the worst. And of course, just heartbroken. My entire system, I thought my aquaponics thing was just done. And I scooped the fish and I closed the lid and I went in the house. I didn't do anything else with it. I just didn't have the heart to mess with it. And so for 2 weeks, I didn't go out there. I was very careful not to look out the kitchen window. I was very careful when I went out to the rest of my garden not to look in that direction because I just couldn't. It was just too much. It was too nasty. It was too disgusting. I just couldn't think about all the heartbreak that my system was all messed up. So at about the 2-week time mark, I thought, you know what? If my wife sees that before I get out there and clean it, she's going to want that whole thing gone. I better get out there and take a look. So one Saturday morning, I go out there. And I was thinking I better block off the whole day because I guess I'm going to have to drain it. I guess I'm going to have to scrub it. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to have to do something drastic. So I walk out there and lo and behold, my plants are perfect. All the plants on top of the system look wonderful. They're green. They're not brown. They're not dead. They are beautiful. This wonderful green cornucopia of all these things waiting to be harvested. Okay, that made me feel a little better. I thought, now what about the fish tank and what about the water? I open up that fish tank. And that fish tank was spotless. There was not a foul odor to be seen anywhere. The water was crystal clear. I start lifting up the styrofoam on my other tanks. I go and I check my media beds. It was, like I said, just clean, like some mountain stream. And it really shocked me. But you know what? It really underscores the idea that an aquaponics system is constantly cleaning itself. You have this wonderful cycle of biology that kind of like in the same way that the earth cleans itself, the aquaponics system cleans itself. And, you don't have that in aquaculture. You don't have that in hydroponics. So it is just, number one, it's just a fantastic thing to have. Once you get it rolling, it is a fantastic system to take advantage of. But there are a couple of lessons that came out of that. Number one, don't talk to strange snails. Yeah, I'll never do that again. Also, stop and think about your system. If something does go wrong, if the power kicks off, what's going to happen? If leaves blow into my system, what's going to happen? Just put a little thought into if there is a problem, how is your system going to react and be ready for it? All right. So let's get back to that big magic question. So is it possible to garden with no soil, no compost, no mulch, no weeds, none of these things? Yes. The answer is very much yes. And you can see in the picture, this is a big greenhouse up in Denver. This is Aquaponic system, and you can see they're doing a deep water raft system. You can see how wonderful their stuff is. Interestingly, aquaponics uses less water than traditional gardening. In Arizona, I see these things, on TV that Arizona, some little town, their water has been turned off because they don't have enough water, for their houses anymore. There's so much farming that happens in New Mexico and Arizona. If you put water on sand, it just soaks in and it's gone. But when you put water into an aquaponic system, yes, your plants transpire some, and yes, you lose a little bit to evaporation, but it is absolutely minimal. Assuming that your system is not leaking, it is so much more efficient in water usage. So that's a huge topic. And then, you know what? It's 100% all natural. And we should stop and just talk about this for a moment more. We're almost done, but if you can tolerate me, if you'll indulge me. When you talk about organic gardening, remember that organic is actually, it's a government label, and the requirements that you go through to be certified organic. And organic does not mean that what you're doing is good for the earth. You might be buying organic, fertilizer that was packaged in Chile and it went on a ship and it, sat in the store and you drove it home with your car. The amount of pollution and what have you that might be generated to get, a bag of organic fertilizer to your house is crazy. But something like aquaponics, because it's a closed system, other than putting some water in there and some fish food, that's basically all that's going into it. And then you're harvesting out of it. So you're not, dumping a bunch of waste anywhere. You're not using any insecticides, any fertilizers and what have you. which health-wise means that it's even better than organic. It is truly all natural. And as a safety thing, E. coli, that's one of the big scares with your leafy greens at the grocery stores, and when they grow spinach, they fertilize with cow manure. Cows being warm-blooded carry E. coli. If the E. coli is in the cow manure that is used to grow your spinach or whatever it is, there's a risk of it getting onto the plant. Well, fish are cold-blooded. Fish do not carry E. coli. So as you garden with your fish in your system, there is no chance that you're going to have an E. coli outbreak in your aquaponics system, because that's simply not how cold-blooded animals work. So not only is this whole gig organic, it's better than organic. All right. Let me stop there just for a moment before I launch into some further reading. John, do we have any questions?
Not right now. I'll tell you what, I guess some of people, curious, and I know it's a very hard question to answer, but, cost of setup. And obviously you can go, as you've described, you can go with the Cadillac, system, or, a Kia system. But, just if you wanted to say, get something, if you're willing to ballpark, say a system like you have in your backyard, before the electronics, would you throw out a number maybe? Or
yeah, before the electronics, I had about $500 into it.
Okay, so definitely nothing. I mean, like if you're going to have an exotic fish tank, or you're going to spend that kind of money inside, and you're not going to get the vegetables.
Oh yeah. I think the tank that the fish were in, I think it was someplace around $100. The little concrete mixing trays were $12 each. There's 6 of those. Do a little bit of math. Some PVC. The pump that I had in there was about $80. I wanted a nice pump in my system. That's most of the cost of your system. A place to put your fish, a place to put your plants, some PVC to move your water, and a pump to make it go. So $500. Number one, $500 will get you there, and that's assuming that you're getting all this stuff new. There are a lot of videos that you can see on YouTube, and a lot of these guys really, really take a lot of pride in how can they build the cheapest possible system. It kind of gets in your brain. I was driving down the road one day, and someone had taken a hot tub and put it out by the street. And, the first thing that went through my mind was not, oh, there's a hot tub. The very first thing that went through my mind was, how many fish can I put in that? So there are ways to pull this cost, down to darn near zero. I think maybe like a heater and a pump. I wouldn't skimp on those, but the rest of the stuff, you know what? If it holds water, it'll work.
There you go. And any chance of escargot farming in the future?
No, snails and I are on the outs, so no, we're not doing that.
All right. Well, we've got a lot of views and a lot of thumbs up, so people are loving this. But I'll let you go ahead and close it out, and then we'll get going or finish up.
All right. Yeah. So finish answering that question. You can build a system for quite cheap. If you go buy a system, they're expensive. If you go buy something on like Amazon or eBay, this stuff can easily run you $1,000 or more. Those people aren't there to be your friends. They're there to sell you something. Piece it together yourself. It's fun to learn, and you'll understand it much better. When something does go wrong, you'll know exactly what to do. I really suggest you build it yourself.
Got it.
Towards doing exactly that, this is the book that I learned from. I really, really enjoyed this book. Sylvia Bernstein. It's a very easy read, but it is chock full of good information. And she used to own the business that ran this greenhouse. So she's a lady that ran an aquaponic system for profit. She actually sold this lettuce to area restaurants in Denver and what have you. So she knows what she's talking about, right? She's actually been there. In addition to the book, she has a DVD with almost the same title. If you're not a reader, it's videos of the exact same information. You can sit there and just soak this up with your eyeballs instead of having to read it. There's another guy that's mucho famous, Murray Hallam. Apparently in Australia, water shortages have been a big topic for many, many years. And so aquaponics is way more popular in Australia than it is in Europe or the United States. And he's been a big figure. Google his stuff or look for his videos on YouTube. He's got lots of good trainings that will show you exactly what to do, exactly how to choose your components, exactly how to piece them together. There's another guy, I think this guy actually died a year or so ago, but Glenn Martinez, same thing. he's very good at piecing together systems for just absolute bottom dollar. Lots of wisdom in his videos. You can find him on YouTube. He's also got a video that you can purchase. There's another guy, Rob Bob. This guy is kind of a trip. Straw hat, huge old beard. Talks a mile a minute. You think I talk? This guy has got me way beat. But this guy, all his videos are just about aquaponics and what you can grow. And he goes into immense detail. And I believe that for a couple dollars, you can actually buy his download and he'll answer questions directly from you. So you can actually chat him questions or email him him questions, and he will answer your questions specifically. So lots of good places to learn. There are some aquaponic trainings on the Texas A&M AgriLife site, but they're much more commercial oriented. They're much more large scale. If you've got the money and the space for that, that's great. But if you want to stay on the small side, do something like I did, I think that these will be fantastic learning resources for you. So you should have the PDF, a link to the PDF there in the chat. If you get really, really desperate, feel free to email me questions. There's also the Harris County Master Gardener's Ask a Master Gardener question line where you can put questions in there. But at this point, let me go ahead and pause for a moment, see if there are any other further questions. And if not, we'll be done.
No, I think we'll actually hold on one second. One just came in. I think no, we were just posting. Yeah, the links. If you look in the chat, we have links to PDF of your presentation, all the different sources that you've been talking about. So fortunately, we've had some master gardeners monitoring the chat. So please, if you're watching this, go back to look in the chat, and also you can get the PDF that Benny put together. So all that information is there in the chat.
All right. Any other questions? That's it?
That's it. That's it. I'll tell you what, Benny, thank you so much. I'll let you, did you have anything else you want to say or?
No, I just thank you very much for indulging me. I apologize for going over, but this is what I really enjoy talking about. You know, all your chemistry, all your biology, all that stuff that you told your teacher, I'll never use this in my whole life. Yeah, you will. This is going to help you dust it off and use all that and be the happier for it. So.
No, it's been really, really interesting. And I mean, it's such a neat hobby too, just to kind of like do it. I mean, it's almost like the edible aspect of it and the plants and the fish. It's like, yeah, that's fun. But all the doing and the seeing and watching the science of it is amazing. Before we let you go, correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to be back talking to us again. Is that correct?
In March, I believe it is, we're going to be talking about edible landscaping.
Yeah, that's right. In March, on March 19th, edible landscaping. So we're really looking forward to seeing you again. Benny, it's always a pleasure talking to you. A reminder once again, we are here on the third Tuesday of the month, 11 o'clock, except for November and December. Next show is going to be February 20th. We have Success with Spring Vegetables, and that's going to be a really good show as well. So, Benny, thank you so much. We appreciate it, and try and stay warm today, okay?
I will. Thank you for having me. We'll
All right.
catch you all later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.